Just give you a little overview here. So guys, listen please, Brennan. Our last section of this unit, so we're in the cells unit. We did microscopes. We moved on, talked all about cells and the cell organelles and so forth. Our last part of this is about what we call cell processes, things that happen inside of cells. And we're going to talk really about four main things here: diffusion, osmosis, photosynthesis, and respiration. Those are the four cell processes that we'll cover. We'll start with osmosis and diffusion, and then we'll move on to the other two towards the end. So we'll just talk about some basics here. Now, I know you guys in elementary school, I believe, you talked about concentration, right? Yeah. Solutions, solute, solvent, dilute, concentrated. So let's just kind of review those ideas because they're important as we talk about osmosis and diffusion. So you see here, if I had 2 glasses of Kool-Aid. All right. So obviously, which of these is more concentrated for Kool-Aid? Which would taste stronger? Sophia? B. Yeah, of course B would. It's darker. Why is it darker?
Because there's more powder.
You added more of the powdered Kool-Aid to the water. Which one has a higher concentration of water, Bailey?
A.
A. It has, if we compare the amount of water and the amount of Kool-Aid, A has a higher concentration of water.
I wasn't here that day.
So if we imagine this, so when you add, let's say I add a spoonful of sugar to a cup of water and stir it around. What appears to happen to the sugar? Brendan? It dissolves. That's what we call it. And what is it? So what does it look like happened?
It disappeared.
Right. But is it gone?
No.
No, because if you were to taste that water, it would still taste sweet. So the sugar is not gone. It's still there. You know what happened then to those sugar crystals, Nick?
The water.
Yeah, and what else, Sophia?
Wait, what did he say?
He said the water took it in.
Oh, it sometimes it makes it what's the word called?
Bailey? Yeah, a sugar crystal that you could see in like your sugar bowl. You could see it. It's not microscopic. It's made of many, many sugar molecules put together in a crystal. But when you add it to water and it dissolves, those many molecules all start to be separated. And they're individual sugar molecules. An individual sugar molecule, you can't see. It's still there in the water, but you can't see it anymore. It's still sugar. It still tastes sweet. It has all the properties of sugar, but you no longer see it because it's been dissolved. So if we think about sample A and B, if the X's are representing these Kool-Aid molecules, A has fewer Kool-Aid molecules than B. We added more Kool-Aid to sample B, and that's why it's darker. That's why it tastes stronger, because there's more of these Kool-Aid molecules, draw that, dissolved in that water. So, when we have some terms that we need to be familiar with. Dilute. So if you have this cup of Kool-Aid here, maybe it's too strong, too sweet. So you could dilute it, which means add some water to it, which makes it a weaker solution. It's not as concentrated anymore. So when we are making a solution, for example, I just mentioned sugar dissolved in water. When we make a solution like that, there's 2 parts to the solution. Do you remember what they're called? There's the stuff that seems to disappear, the sugar. Do you know what we call that?
Isn't it? Don't we start with
They both start with S's.
So, oh, it sounds, oh, solute.
Yeah, the solute is the stuff that seems to disappear. And what about the water, or what's holding the solute? Rania?
The solvent.
That's the solvent. So a solution is made of two parts, the solution, the solute, and the solvent. The solute is the thing that seems to disappear, the thing that gets dissolved. And the solvent is the thing that holds it, the thing that breaks it down. So in our Kool-Aid example, what's the solute? Raise your hand, please. What's the solute? Nick?
Solute is when you just mix things together.
But which part is the solute? When you're making Kool-Aid, what's the solute? What seems to disappear? The sugary crystal things. Okay. That's the solute. The Kool-Aid powder is the solute. And when you make Kool-Aid, Vinny, what's the solvent? No, what's the solvent?
The water?
Water. Water is the solvent. It's what holds the Kool-Aid and makes it disappear and dissolve. Questions, Sophia?
No, I was just.
Oh. All right, so let's think about a couple other examples. If I have just some molecules, these O molecules, I don't know what they are, it doesn't really matter. Okay? What's the solute and they're in a beaker of water? What's the solute, Bailey? The little O's. What's the solvent in this solution? Lily?
Water.
The water. Which has a higher concentration of O molecules? A higher concentration. Brendan?
Sample B.
Sample B. Which has a higher concentration of water? Addie?
Sample A.
Correct. Here I have some salt water. When I make some salt water solution, what's the solute? I want to hear from somebody new. Faith? The salt that you add. What's the solvent? Olivia?
The water.
The water. Which of these has a higher concentration of salt molecules? Nick?
A.
Which has a higher concentration of water? Frank?
B.
B. One more example, glucose. Glucose is a type of sugar. So I have two samples. What's the solute when I make this glucose solution? Frank?
B.
Well, what's the solute?
Oh, it's solute?
Yep.
The one with the more sugar, that one?
Yeah, but what's disappearing when I make this?
The water.
No?
Wait, it's disappearing. Oh, sugar.
Yeah, the glucose.
Yes.
What's the solvent? Again, the water. Water is often a solvent. We call it the universal solvent because most materials that dissolve can dissolve in water. Not everything, but most. So now I have a little bit of a different situation though. Which is more concentrated for glucose, or are they the same? What do you think, Sophia?
I think they're different because the amount of water is different. So in sample B, there's less water. So that means that with the glucose, it will be like more like together. And then with the water, it will be have more concentrated water because there's more water.
Okay. Does somebody want to disagree with that? Frank? Benny?
I say no because what's the question?
I want to know about the concentration of glucose.
Oh yeah, I would say B because there's less water and there's the same amount of.
Okay. But, so you're saying they have the same concentration, or you're saying B is more concentrated?
B.
Okay, that's what Sophia was saying.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys are right. So again, even if I were to count up the molecules, sure, there's 6 in each of them, but they're not the same concentration because as Sophia was explaining, sample A has double the amount of water. So if you imagine you add a cup or a quarter cup of Kool-Aid and you add it to a glass of water versus adding it to a whole pitcher of water, even though you have the same amount of Kool-Aid you're adding, they're not going to be the same concentration. Okay? B has a higher concentration of glucose, and A has a higher concentration of water. So you have to take into account the amount of solute and the amount of solvents. All right, so how is this related to cells? Our unit is about cells. It's related to cells because materials move into and out of a cell all the time. And they do that based on the concentration. Molecules that get into a cell, obviously they have to go through what?
Cell membrane.
Yeah, the cell membrane. They have to get through that cell membrane. And the cell membrane, this thin layer around the cell, it is what we call selectively permeable, semi-permeable, which means some things can go in and out, other things cannot. And the cell membrane is what controls which molecules can go into the cell and which cannot. When we talk about a membrane, it may be impermeable to a substance, which means things cannot get in and out. A substance cannot go through it. For example, the cell membrane is impermeable to starch. Starch cannot get through the cell membrane. It's too big of a molecule. Permeable means the substance can get through. For example, oxygen. Oxygen can pass right through the cell membrane. The cell membrane is permeable to oxygen. So what we say is that cell membranes are semi-permeable. It means certain substances can pass through, others cannot. It depends on what molecule we're talking about. The cell membrane is semi-permeable. The cell membrane is pretty complex. It's a double layer. Stuck inside of it are different types of proteins. Okay? And what happens is these proteins stuck in the cell, like this is the outside of the cell, this is inside of the cell. These proteins sometimes provide kind of like a tunnel to allow certain things through. Other things can pass right through this cell membrane. Some things can't get through at all. It's semi-permeable. So, a few substances, water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, can diffuse directly through the cell membrane. It's like the membrane's not even there. All right, so to finish up here, if you think about our Kool-Aid, if I had 5 glasses of Kool-Aid, and I'm thinking about their concentration, how strong the solution is. Which has a high concentration of Kool-Aid? Brendan? Yes. Which has a low concentration of Kool-Aid? Eddie?
The farthest one to the left.
Yes. Which has a high concentration of water? Faith?
The one all the way to the left.
And which has a low concentration of water? Bailey?
The one all the way to
Correct. So, the one on the left has a low concentration of Kool-Aid, a high concentration of water, and then the one on the far right, that's the opposite. Sorry, hold on. And as we move into talking about osmosis and diffusion, concentration is very important because molecules always move from higher to lower concentration if they can.
Can we stop this?
Yeah. Any questions about that so far?